because they think it's all about the house. And it's actually has very little to do with the house. It has more to do with the process. And so this is going to show you a little bit of that. This is using mortgages and commercial paper, like banks that we got. You go get a loan from a bank, or you go get a loan on your house and your mortgage. That's the second way we create money in this country, and it's the biggest by far. The Federal Reserve Bank we have here, and a local bank. We have a borrower, and we have a senator. So let's imagine for a moment. I'm sorry, we don't have a senator. Senator's gone. Senator's, he's gotten voted out. We have a bank depositor. So imagine for a moment the bank depositor. Joe's finished a real estate deal. He's made $10,000. He goes and puts it in his bank account at his bank. Okay, just like you or I would in a money market account. He makes a deposit of $10,000 into the local bank. Now the arrangement with the local banks, all the banks that have banking licenses are on the Federal Reserve, is that they can borrow up to 12 times the amount of money that the local bank has on deposit. It doesn't have to be their money, it's just cash on hand. It's called liquidity. Liquidity. Whatever liquidity that they have on hand, they can borrow from the Federal Reserve. Then again, their mission of the bank is to do what? How do banks make money? They lend money. So they can borrow money based off other people's money in their bank. They can go borrow money from the Federal Reserve, then they have cash to lend out at a higher interest rate than they're paying the Federal Reserve. You see that? So that's exactly how it works. Let's follow the $10,000. So now the local bank has the $10,000 that belongs to the depositor over here. So the local bank goes to the Federal Reserve and says, hey, I want to borrow 12 times that amount of money. Just imagine for the purposes of this demonstration. So a $120,000 loan is then extended from the Federal Reserve to the local bank. And the local bank has $120,000 it's borrowed that it can now lend out to other people. So let's imagine Lauren here. She's found a house that she really, really wants. It costs $120,000. She goes to the banker and says, hey, I'd like to borrow $120,000 in this house. They say, well, that's great. We'll take a mortgage. We'll give you a deed on the property, and you can buy that house because we happen to have $120,000 we just got available. So they lend the local bank $120,000 on a mortgage. Now, they've created that money, again, right out of thin air, using and secured by this bank's this depositor's money that's in that bank. And so the bank would make the spread of the difference of what it pays for interest and what it gets on interest. So if the bank was, if Lauren was paying, let's say, prime rate right now is 3.25%, which is ridiculous. No one ever gets a mortgage for that. But for the purpose of the demonstration, let's imagine she was. And let's imagine that the price that they have to pay, that each bank has to pay the government, sorry, off the cuff, did I just say the government? Jeez, I'm not listening to my own thing here. So the price that the local bank has to pay to the Federal Reserve Bank, right now, it's actually zero. It's zero. But it's never really been zero, so let's not call it zero, because that really sounds really bad. So let's call it 0.25%. Let's call it 1/4%. So the bank, let's pretend, has to pay 1/4% annually interest on that money it borrowed, and Lauren gets to pay 3.25%. So the bank would make that 3 points. Does that make sense? That's what they get, is the difference or the spread. That's how banks make money. Now, as long as everything's going great, it's good to be the bank, right? The table's long. She jumped right there. As long as it's going great, it works. You see that? But what happens when Lauren quits making her payment? If something happens in her life and she goes, I can't pay this anymore, so I have to turn it back in. So she goes to the banker, she gives them back their deed, she gives them back their mortgage. She says, I'm not making any more payments, I'm out of here, and she leaves. So now she's gone, and now the bank is left holding the bag, per se, right? So now, here's the questions. Does the local bank, this banker, still owe this depositor his 10 grand that he has in their bank? Does the local bank still owe him the $10,000 that he deposited?
Yeah.
Sure. And does the local bank still owe the Federal Reserve the $120,000 they borrowed from them?
No.
Yes, they still do. So the local bank owes for the money that they lent to her. She didn't pay it back. Now they have to foreclose on the property. And that's the process of how foreclosure works right now. So, thank you very much, guys. So they still owe the money. The local banks get into trouble because here's the problem. These banks, through these debt instruments...
Wait a second, wait. Okay. In the parentheses underneath the bank borrowed 12-to-1. Yeah. Is the 2004 40-to-1?
Yeah. Can we tell you about that?
Yep. Yeah. Tell me.
Okay.
Talk.
In 2004, before all this debacle of the last year that you know about, In 2004, 5 of the big investment bankers, which 2 are gone, Lehman Brothers and Bear Stearns, were 2 of them, 5 of the big investment bankers went to the Federal Reserve and said, we love buying these mortgages so well, it's working so good, these mortgage-backed securities, that we'd like to up our ante. So all the money that they had under their belt, which was for stock portfolios and all the money that anybody had in their institutions, they asked them to lend them up to 40 times what they had on deposit. And the Federal Reserve said, sure, we'll let you do that. So they allowed them to go from 12 times per dollar to 40 times per dollar, and they used that money to buy these mortgage-backed securities. In 2008, when this thing came crashing down, they found out that Lehman Brothers had accounts that were up to 100 times leverage. For every dollar they had on deposit in their bank, they borrowed up to 100 from the Federal Reserve. And Bear Stearns actually had accounts with 200 times the amount of leverage. So that's why they could not in any way feasibly come up with the difference. So that's what happened and caused the situation that we're in right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So when the house goes into foreclosure, what does that look like? What does that mean? What does that cost? How long does that take? What does it mean to the bank? Well, it's important to know these things. The Federal Reserve does not accept real estate as a form of payment. And you know, banks are in the lending business again. They're not in the real estate business. So they don't want anything to do with the houses. But now they've been forced to get these houses. The average foreclosure takes 9 months. It costs the bank $25,000 of real hard-earned cash from them. So they have to borrow that more money, get that in, to cash that out. And remember, that mortgage has quit paying them. So they're no longer receiving anything from Lauren because the house has stopped paying. So they have to get that house actually into their name. And the process of doing that is called foreclosure. That relieves the mortgage that's owed on it, but they have to get the house. And they don't really like the house. Once they get the house onto their balance sheet, it's called an REO. That means real estate owned. Real simple stuff. Real estate owned. It means that the institution that loaned the money for the mortgage, once the mortgage defaulted, they have now had to get back that piece of property that was securing that mortgage. The mortgage goes away, and now they have the real estate instead of the mortgage. And if you're a bank, you don't want the paper. I mean, you don't want the house. You want the paper. The reason, all you want is that mortgage, because people send you checks because they signed their name and said they would. When they stop doing that, you lose that, and now you have to pick up a liability or this house or piece of real estate. So lending becomes paralyzed, which is exactly what's happened in our country and basically the world right now. And so what does the bank do once they have this property on their balance sheet, this REO, this piece of real estate? Well, they turn around, they want to sell it. They want to sell it for as much as they can, as quick as they can. So they want to get rid of it and sell it for as much as they possibly can. They try to do that through local realtors, through the multiple listing service. You might see signs out in front yards of houses everywhere that say bank-owned properties or stuff for sale. They also do it through auctions and different types of auction. They have different rounds of auctions they'll do on. But banks try to sell off their portfolio of houses they've got, of bad mortgages. They try to sell those houses off to get rid of them to produce cash so they can get back in a positive situation so they can start borrowing money again and lending money again, which is what their primary business is. When that doesn't work, that's where Pinnacle Property Solutions steps in and buys these properties in bulk. We go into banks, institutions, hedge funds, pension companies, auction houses, facilitators. Banks will sometimes use facilitators and sell them off to them, and we'll go in and buy these houses up in larger numbers. We don't buy one house at a time. We might buy 10 or 30 or 50 or 100 or 200 at a time, and we'll make the best deals that we can with those institutions directly. All right? So this is what it means to buy in bulk. First of all, when you're buying in bulk, you're buying. You're buying. You're not brokering. We don't broker deals. We're not real estate brokers. We don't broker deals. We don't broker packages. A lot of people are doing this stuff, and they don't really know what they're doing. They're kind of giving all of us to do not a great name, if you know what I mean. Because it's a hard business to be in right now. Real estate's a hard business. If you're a broker, you could be suffering. So they're trying to get into other areas. And I understand that. But the bulk business is a little different. You really need to be a buyer. That's the difference. We use our money and buy bulk properties at a time directly from institutions and banks and people that are selling them. We don't buy one property at a time. We do not broker deals. We actually bring them onto our balance sheet. We try to buy those houses. You buy them in 1 or